back in July at IPMC 2019 at our CMI luncheon. The CMI membership spoke, and collectively we said the number one thing that we would love for our organization to provide for us is resources. So last month I came to you with the first video about some online resources. Today I thought, let's talk about some theological resources, some things that can really enhance your communication of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I thought, let's just come into my office, let's go to my bookcase, to my own personal library, and I'll share with you some of the resources that I use. First thing I wanted to point out to you was the NIV application commentary. Now up here on my shelf, I have mostly just the New Testament right now, but I also have this available on my software that I have been using, Bible software, since the mid-90s. It's called Word Search. That's what I use and have been building that library, over the last 20 plus years. And so the NIV application commentary is on my Bible software, but you can get it in a hardback book as well. And they're great resources. They have the original context, bridging the old to the new, and then some modern application for pretty much every portion of Scripture. So it's a really, really good resource. There are some other things I wanted to point out to you. Every preacher and teacher should have Vine's Expository Dictionary of Biblical Words, as well as a Strong's Concordance. And again, you may have that on software, but these are indispensable, non-negotiable resources. There are some other people who have been outstanding theologians in our day that I wanted to point out to you. For instance, Richard Bauckham. Richard Bauckham, this particular book is The Jewish World Around the New Testament. But he has some other, I have 3 or 4 of his books that really talk about and put Jesus in the context of the ancient Jewish world. Richard Bauckham does a great job with that. Many of you may be very familiar with N.T. Wright, great theologian. Again, I've got 4 or 5 books of his. And a lot of these theologians that I point out to you today are not necessarily from a spirit-filled perspective. So you always have to factor that in as well. John Stott has been a great, great theologian in our time. Andreas Kirstenberger, especially about the Gospel of John. There are insight in both this large book, the theology of John's Gospel and Letters, and then this is almost like a summary of the larger book, but Kirstenberger would be great. Now, my favorite of all time is Alfred Edersheim, and there are 2 gigantic books that he wrote that I just feel are phenomenal, and you may or may not be familiar with them, but Alfred Edersheim wrote The Life and Times of Jesus the Messiah, and he also has Old Testament Bible history. Now, all of these resources that I'm sharing with you, they are not the kind of thing that you open up and just start to read from chapter 1 all the way through. That could be terrorizing to your heart. It just would take forever to do. They are resources, and almost in every one of them there'll be an index in the back. You'll be at a certain scripture, match it to the index, it'll tell you that's on page 365. So use them as resources. Let's head to the other side of the office, to the other bookcase, and I want to show you just a couple things there. First of all, Randy Alcorn. His book, Money, Possessions, and Eternity, is a wonderful resource, and he's got other books and even just his tweets that he tweets out. Randy Alcorn, he specializes in the biblical principle of stewardship. So if you're teaching in a series about stewardship, or maybe even just at the offering time, Randy Alcorn, specifically this book, Money, Possessions, and Eternity, would be a really great resource for you. And one other one up here, and maybe the one I wanted to highlight the most for you today, is Timothy Keller's book called Preaching. And this is almost like a little textbook for modern day hermeneutics, teaching, and preaching, and I would really encourage you to get this. Now, everything I've shared with you today, you can get on Amazon or maybe at your local Christian bookstore. Some of them you might even be able to get at a Barnes & Noble, but make yourself available to them. And I would encourage you to do this. Be led by the Spirit of God. Maybe there's one thing that I pointed out today that you say, you know what, that jumped out at me. I want to go get that. Maybe there's 3, maybe there are 7 things. But build your library because it'll make you a better communicator and you'll be more effective at winning and discipling people to Jesus Christ. Next month, I'll be back. I'll bring you some more resources. God bless.